Welcome to the Athletic Performance Podcast, a conversation for all things performance related, where we push the boundaries of speed, power, and strength. I'm your host, Ryan Patrick, and we're here to discuss, debate, and enhance athletic development for coaches and athletes alike. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Today on the show, I have Keiran Halton, a personal trainer and head strength and conditioning coach of Brunswick High School in Greenwich, Connecticut. Keiran has been one of my great friends for a long time, and he's a phenomenal coach. Today, we talk about how to work with large groups of athletes, how to set high standards and diversify your approach so that you can help athletes of all different levels be successful. And when it comes down to it, we talk a lot about how to keep it simple and creating the culture that's essential for helping athletes find the sweet spot to their success. If you're a coach and you work with groups of athletes, you're going to want to tune into this conversation. When you finish listening, please rate and review the podcast with 5 stars so that we can help continue to reach coaches like you. Thank you. So before we get into introducing you, I always just want to start with a question of what kind of grinds your gears? What bullshit out there do you think people are following? What's on your mind as some of the biggest quackery that's out there?
Oh, I don't know. I've tried to step back a little bit from social media for my lack of discipline with not getting sucked into the bullshit. It's just so funny. I feel like people will pick and choose their arguments with a lot with the Olympic lifts lately. Obviously, that's always a hot topic, or what biomechanics actually matter and stuff. And it's so interesting where I'm just I don't know how many humans you guys work with on a day-to-day basis, or you just really enjoy getting into, I don't know, maybe you're getting more views on your page and it's a very purposeful argument and starting drama and stuff, like we're on the Housewives or whatever. But if that's how people make money, God bless them. But the super nuanced conversations on social media, I just can't even get into. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's always the argument of I'm worried about scapulohumeral rhythm, but the reality is most people just aren't even fucking doing anything, not even any exercise. So what's what here?
Well, yeah, exactly. And what we were just talking about before we started recording is I have a few dozen high school kids that are coming in 15 minutes where this is 3/4 of the kids, this will never matter. I'm just trying to connect with them on a human level and keep them from injuring themselves in a crowded weight room. Or one of my private clients who's sitting at his desk all day. It's hey, did you feel better after you moved for an hour? Great. Let's do that again in 2 days for another hour. So maybe I'm not working with the right population for those things to apply to, but I just feel with all the different people that I see, it's let's just keep nailing the big rocks and leave the pebbles in the sand for online.
Yeah. Well, Keiran, I appreciate you being here. And before we go down the road, I just want to backpedal and have you do just a quick intro of yourself. I know you've got a lot of experience. You work with a lot of different groups. So if you could just kind of tell the listeners a little bit about that, I think it'll really set the frame for some of the conversations we're already planning to go into today. Yeah,
for sure. So I've been coaching now for a little over a decade, which is weird to say at this point. We're talking about, the younger generation. But coaching a little over a decade, and initially started off in traditional sport performance internships, working for different professional organizations and private facilities. And then Athletes for Show, Gen Pop for Dough, started coaching at Big Box Gym, and actually found out that working with regular adults is super rewarding. Potentially even more so than athletes a lot of the time, but definitely missed just being around that competitive environment with the athletes. So now these days, I coach my adult clients in the morning through early afternoon in Westchester, New York, just north of New York City. And then I will head a little north, just over the Connecticut line, and coach at a private school in Greenwich, Connecticut called Brunswick School, where I'm the head strength and conditioning coach for the high school.
Awesome. Brunswick is legendary, man. Every time you post a video from that weight room, I'm just damn, that place is cool.
Yeah, it's crazy. We had a really crappy up above the weight room gym forever. And
Mm-hmm.
then, which is really weird because to your point, we have like, it's insane the alumni list each year of where kids are going on like full rides or whatever. And we just had a really crappy weight room for them. So finally we upgraded 2 years ago, maybe we got outfitted with all new Sorinex, like Sorinex racks, and definitely took some time to make sure we had everything laid out so we could get the maximum amount of guys in and out each afternoon. And this is my fifth or sixth year, but what started off as a pretty underwhelming program, we did not get a lot of foot traffic in. I actually probably had to sell harder there than I do for my private clients.
Wow.
But now, thankfully, we'll have 3, 4, sometimes 5 teams come through a day and pretty much work with every team. It's not a mandatory thing. You have to get the coaches and the athletes interested. And thankfully, I have a lot of great coaches and captains of teams who have kind of bought in and started coming through. So now I can actually work with a freshman all through his high school career. And so that's super rewarding as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of value to that, right? Because we have to sell teams, and my hang up with coaching teams, because in our space it's all semi-private personal training, which I like. I get a little more time to individualize things. I get to take care of the athlete. They've kind of raised their hand and said, hey, I want to do this. I want to get better. And we kind of set the table with them in terms of expectations. My experience with teams has always been there's a couple kids who are leading from the front. They want to be there. They're pushing the younger ones. There are a few guys in the middle. There's always like some laggards, maybe kids who don't want to be there. It's not required, but they're expected to be there. And I've just always had trouble with those guys because one, I love the weight room and I love training and I love developing, but like those guys, like just from an energy standpoint, I just struggle with them. And for you to be able to accomplish what you have in that environment is just, I think, a huge testament to the kind of stuff that you're giving these kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a really good point too, because like we were talking about too, it's like you have to take care of the majority, but we have national level recruits, number one I've worked with kids who are number one in the country for their sport, all the way through the kids who, to your point, are just required to be there and they're required to play a sport that season, all in the same workout without any ramp up period. It's just like, hey, now we're in season, now we're doing a workout. So it's like one of the biggest challenges for me at first, I think, was finding something, or at least providing enough options to let the older, more advanced, more competent kids kind of like express their strength and their speed and power and have a little fun, but still create enough of a learning environment for the younger guys to maybe not get to that, but at least progress and be able to express all those things in similar drills. And it's really hard because you could say, oh, we're going to do group A over here, group B over here, but group B sees what group A is doing and they're going to start sneaking some of that in. So it's like, it's really tricky to find that sweet spot. And sometimes you just have to create boundaries for certain things. But that, as much as I hate to say it, that entertainment piece to it, like you have to keep things fun and interesting, especially at the high school level, and I'm curious to see some of your thoughts here because I'm private as well, but not with the high school kids. Every single kid has their own personal trainer or strength coach. 90% of them do anyway. So they're getting their own individualization and things like that outside of the facility. So I had to find a sweet spot for our bigger group environment there.
Yeah, it's guys like you that are creating a problem for us in the private sector, right? Because a lot of these, not at Brunswick, but a lot of the families that we work with, it's like, well, we've got this coach at the school and it's quote unquote free. And so sometimes we get kids who will just choose to do that. Not that I have a problem with that, because I think all kids should be training anyway. I think there's just a lot of low hanging fruit. My thoughts on average for this are that all these kids are over specialized with their sport and just physically underwhelming. I don't understand that. It's physically some of these kids aren't able to perform at the level you want them to perform at. Like there's certain physics that we have to achieve if they want to go to the next level, right? Sally can't block a ball at the net because she doesn't have the vertical jump. Well, more volleyball is not necessarily going to fix that, but I forgot where I was going with this. I was just on a tangent and a rant, but I think one of the important things I really maybe want to dive into with you is beforehand, we talked about having these large groups and trying to coach them. On some level, it's like you got to kind of coach to the mean, but you do have these outliers who A, need remedial work, or B, need something that's more advanced. But there's so much nuance in the industry, right? We need to watch these little details that how do you apply this stuff on a mass scale like you're doing? What's really working for you and what's just like noise when it comes to actual training?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I will say, just to jump back to the tangent you had real quick, in terms of like private sector gyms versus like school provided strength and conditioning coaches or the sport coaches doing the weight room stuff. It's pretty cool because there's dog shit everywhere, right? Like on both ends. But there are some really good facilities in like our area, for instance, where I know guys are going to go. And normally I'll tell guys just to pick one or the other, whatever you feel best supports you. Because at the end of the day, as the athlete, I want you to feel best supported. But at the same time, what I try to do is keep things, to your point, as general as possible, where we're going to hit as much low hanging fruit as we can, because a lot of the time when they go to the private sector guys, you're going to be able to individualize a little bit more. So a lot of times I'll sell it as, yeah, you could definitely do both. Here's my program. You can explain. I'll be happy to talk to the coach if I have time. Probably not with all the kids that have all the different coaches, but it's super, super basic. I'm still coaching a ton of like how to do a proper push-up. Like I can count on, I might need a second hand for the entire high school who looks really good doing a push-up or like a chin-up. So I'm like, this is going to benefit your program anyway. And I'm probably doing the stuff that your individual coach doesn't really want to spend the time with, but this will allow you to do more anyway. So I think it's a lot of filling the gaps in terms of what I'm going to try to do, or whether it's a sport coach, another strength coach that they're working with, because they're going to work with one anyway. And that just gives them the biggest bang for their buck in terms of time investment. So that was an aside for that. But in terms of, I think that you were asking, what's the biggest, like, how do we get the most guys moving with, in terms of the extremes and the median?
Yeah, man, I've reached out to you before. You've got videos of a ton of kids doing really great work. And I'm with you. Like a push-up is a really basic discriminator of who's really paying attention to training and who's just trying to knock out a certain number of volume, right? Because we got a lot of kids that can't do it. And guys hate it when I'm like, hey, you need to do it on an incline. But the thing that I think I really want to get into is that you get a large group of kids doing stuff really, really well. And for a young coach or an up and coming coach, they're getting a lot of this biomechanics stuff fed to them. And some of it is nuanced. Some of it is complex. Yeah. Some of it is really difficult to apply to one client, let alone a group of kids who, as we talked about, probably aren't paying that much attention, have an AirPod in, have girlfriend, boyfriend issues, who have a number of things that are infinitely more important to them than how to execute an exercise with pristine technique. So I guess just my question is, what's useful for you? What kind of stuff have you had to discard? What's your thought process when you're approaching a group like this to be able to get them to all do this stuff as well as you get them to do it?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. That means a lot coming from you. But I think it's just always knowing where we want to start in terms of like their quote unquote like core position. I think a lot of us have an appreciation for different movement models, or to your point, different biomechanical things. But I think if we can always, for me, what I always come back to is like, I think we're talking a lot about different shapes that people can assume. And obviously there's different body types. So certain shapes might be easier than others. But I think the easiest place to start to achieve a shape that looks reasonable for whatever you're coaching, whether a goblet squat, push up, chin up, is always coming back to what I call a tall and tight position, what everybody else calls stacked position. Because I feel like 8 out of 10 times, if we can get somebody to understand their pelvic and rib position and just lock it in one on top of the other, you have, at least now you have a chance for your arms and your legs to, one, get a little more mobility, express a little more strength, and power. And then we can avoid all the annoying, nagging, low back injuries, pinching in my hip, pinching in my shoulder, my neck. So a lot of the times we'll start day one. And I say this day one, besides like the, hey, don't kill yourself, don't drop a weight on your head type stuff, is if you don't remember anything else, there's 3 positions. And shout out to the strength faction guys back in the day. I totally stole this from them. But our macho man position, right? And we always make a little joke about it, try to get the kids laughing as soon as we can. And it's just, you got the big tough guy walking down the hallway at you, sticking his chest out, sticking his butt out. And then we have bad dog or sad dog position. Who's got a dog at home? And then you could start, that's another conversation piece, because I'm a big dog guy, so we can talk about that later. But, what happens when they take a dump on the floor and you yell at them, they get all sad, and now they're in that really flex position, right? Neither one of these positions feels great in. So we want to get tall and tight, head over heart over hips, feel a little bit of your side abs. And if you don't remember anything else today, remember that. And so we'll just try to hammer that for a while. Some kids that they'll hear that all semester and just be like, all right, coach, I get it. But if we could start there, I think, and whatever model that you really base your coach's eye off of, I think that everyone can agree, like having control of your middle is a really good place to start for whatever the goal is.
Yeah. Man, there's so many directions I can go with what you just said. We do call it J-Lo and Michael Jackson, so we're kind of in the same thing. People tend to enjoy that. Although I feel like both of those references might be becoming a little antiquated, because sometimes the kids just look at me. But that's another conversation. But for us, it's not even a perfect posture, because I don't want to think it's this immovable position from which you have to get to and we can't move from there. But I think it starts to create a thread of similarity for our athletes, right? So, hey, when you squat, if you're not stacked, things are going to fall forward. Now you can go up and down with the hips, or you can change levels. And, that's going to be really important for when we talk about change of direction. Obviously, there's a lot of trunk dynamics and lateral flexion when you're going in and out of these turns and rotation. But at least it kind of sets the stage for these kids. And just to your point, just makes things so simple.
Yeah. And I love that you said that point too, because there's definitely some guys where you have to be like, hey, listen, I know that that's what we said, but also you're not going to break if you aren't there perfectly. It's just like our starting place. But yeah, and then that's always my thing, is like, how can we keep this really simple? Because if it's simple for you, you're probably learning it. You're probably able to express all the things that we talked about before. But then on my side of the fence, I have your one group, and this is just my afternoon gig, right? This isn't even considering the adults that I had that morning, but you're the one team, you're one kid on one team, and I have 3 more coming in over the next 90 minutes. But it allows me to connect with you more. I don't have to worry about deep diving into these biomechanics that they're not going to remember anyway. So, hey, tall and tight. Oh, didn't you say you had a dog in the warm-up? What kind of dog is it? And then that's how we can start making connections, and I could get to know guys better anyway. So simple when you have a volume of people, or you just care about people learning it more quickly. Like, I just think that that's always a great route to take. And you can always make things more complicated, but it's kind of hard to walk it back if you've already been like, do you know how eccentrically orientated your obliques are? Like, and you're just like, what? So.
Yes, it's meaningless to adults, to kids. Is this going to make me faster? Like, I don't really care about the rest of this. Like, guys want to hit crunches and arms at the end of the workout and pecs, like all the taboo muscles, right, for posture. But it's like, they want this. So how much of that are you giving these guys? Because let's be honest, they need it. They're going to do it. We need an element of that so that they're buying into the program. And I want the guys to look jacked. I don't want them to come to my program. And I try to get every guy to, hey, sleeveless jerseys is what's happening this season. Let's go for it. But anyway, I'm getting carried away. But like, how much of this are you baking into the program so that they feel like you're giving them what they want too?
Oh, for sure. I think that was, we talked about having a bullshit list earlier on. I think one of the first things on my list was I was probably too controlling, where you walk into a chaotic weight room with a ton of kids. Some of them you don't even know their names because they've never been there before, where I'm like, I'm going to lock it all down. We're going to do it my way. I know everybody's going to be safe. I know we're going to get results. And like they would get frustrated. I would get frustrated. So I think I know what my non-negotiables are now in terms of obviously safety is number one. Let's work on some simple basic positions, sticking to the tempo, things like that. If we can get my main objectives done for the day in terms of like, hey, I want a good set of squats. I've really simplified, but also really like auto-regulated a ton now where I give them plenty of, if you're an older kid and you could squat, I don't care what you squat with. I might nix some of the barbell back squat for like shoulder guys, or if you're having low back issues, there's certain things we'll get rid of. But if you're an older, more competent guy, we're going to open up the playbook for you, but you're still going to hit our sets and reps. But yeah, a lot of times we'll have a pre-brief before every lift, what the objectives are. We'll go through, we'll have a debrief. And then at the end of it, almost every debrief, or at least at the end of every week, hey, how's everybody feeling? Is anybody feeling any certain way? Hey, remember, this is a two-way street. I can guess what's going to work and feel good for you guys, but also you need to talk to me and tell me. I can't help you if I don't know. So I just try to keep as much of an open communication and open dialogue as I can. And then definitely in terms of the arms and abs, we definitely have Friday arm for arm. If guys want to come in and get some extra stuff in, yeah, you guys got 5 minutes at the end of the workout. Like, I don't care. We got barbells, we got dumbbells, we got kettlebells, we got bands. Like, you're not leaving until everybody's jacked up and we're filling the sleeves here, right? So there's plenty of auto regulation. There's plenty of, hey, I want to hear feedback from you guys. And it's actually super helpful when you guys tell me what feels good or what you want to do more of. And then we'll give some open-ended periods of, hey, this on you, especially with the football guys. It's like, all right, 6 minutes. Let's get a juicy pump before we hit the field. Let's go. And you're not managing that volume, but it's bicep curls, push-ups, and tricep extensions. Like, they'll be fine. They're going to go run like a ton anyway. That wasn't planned for that day. So the arms is not the issue.
Totally, man. That's absolute gold. I just kind of envision this like general's tent, right? So you got the cadets in there. You're going to tell them what the mission is. They're going to go do the mission. And then you're going to come back and talk about what went well, what they can improve. Like that just is like coaching gold, because I think in a lot of these situations and a lot of the large group programs that we see, whether it's private sector or even high school, it's like you're on a clock and you're like churning these kids in and out. And it's like high and by in the same breath. And it's just what's structured. This is what we're doing. We're just going to rip through it. And it is what it is. But for you to take that time and just kind of set the tone, and I think more so the expectations for everybody is, man, I need to steal that. I really love that.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely learn the hard way. It's definitely not my way or the highway. And I just feel like for so many people, it would actually simplify your own programming, because it's, like I'm still ultimately making the decisions. I'm still directing the ship a little bit. But like for the times I'm like, I don't know, should I do exercise A or exercise B? Because of, to your point, like you'll go down the rabbit hole. Well, the biomechanics, I want to hit this certain position, that certain position. But then a kid comes up to you and he says, hey, I really hate this one. Can we do that one? And you're like, oh yeah, let's just do that. Whether it's the perfect move for that day or week or whatever, it doesn't matter. This kid loves it. One of the biggest things I always think about, we all nerd out about, let's get that 5% better and the performance outcomes and blah, blah, blah. Ultimately, there's so many kids that I have that aren't going to go on to college. There's a ton that are, but there's a ton that aren't also. And I just want you to love training, or at least have a good enough relationship with it where you can at least feel competent and confident going into a weight room and just living a normal, healthy life. So if we could find stuff that you love, let's do it. It's all fun. It's all creating some sort of stimulus. I'm not married to anything in particular. And sometimes it's fun because I haven't done that in a while. So now it's fun for me too. So I'm all on board. So
yeah, that's funny. I was just having a conversation yesterday. We've got, and I won't name names, we've got this athlete who I feel like their parent is just really pushing them to do this thing. And they got cut from one of their school teams. They're playing a club team, but the fire is just not there, right? And they come in and I enjoy their personality. They're super just kind of quirky and nerdy, but just very endearing. right? But sometimes like the motivation side of the stuff's not there. And I was talking with my staff and with just some other clients, like the last thing that I want to do is make this punitive for her
Yeah.
and make this something that it just becomes something resentful and that they hate training and it's awful. And all I do is just sacrifice her on the altar of exercise every time she comes in because, God damn it, she's going to make the next tryout. It's the last thing I want to do. But it's like the other side of it is the parents like, well, are they getting better? What's going on? I'm like, I don't think you need to have a conversation because I'm not sure you guys are on the same page. And so
Yeah.
it puts me in a really weird spot, but I'm trying to think long term about what's the healthiest thing for this kid. It's tough.
That I don't envy being in your shoes on that one. Cause again, mine is more like bigger group. Like sometimes the environment makes it more enjoyable because at least they're hanging out with their friends and stuff like that. On the private sector side of things, to your point, it's who wants this more. And that's a tough spot for everybody.
Yeah, I tell kids all the time, look, here are my expectations. If you want to do this, we have kids who are focused on getting to the next level. For some kids, starting, making the team. For other kids, it means college. And I don't care what that means to you, but if you're going to come here, my default stance for everybody is that you're not at your potential. I think you got a lot more. That's it. And we're going to operate with that baseline understanding. But don't come in here and screw around and drag other kids down. We can still be cool. We can still be boys. But if this is something you don't want to do, that's fine. Like we'll be really transparent and candid about it. Like I'm not gonna be the guy that pushes on you and you don't want that. We either do this and we're on the same page or you find some other place to go. And sometimes parents don't like that.
Yeah. One of the things that you said that I love and I use a lot is fitness is the first domino. So I'm kind of like you and a lot of other people where I think that the weight room is a really great place to learn and grow. And your point about potential, I totally, that's like a big driving force for me is listen, you don't need to be a stud. I don't expect perfection. None of that. But this is a hard, this is like not a sacred place, but this is like a high performance environment where you need to do your part and not mess up the flow. And you need to try to add to that because there's a lot of other people who are trying to reach their potential. So one of the benefits of being in more of a school setting, I hate doing it, but I've definitely kicked people out before for screwing around, for not paying attention. One, it's a safety issue, right? But then two, you're like, I literally am seeing the energy die with you coming in here. And it's been like some bigger guys on the team where it probably is not a great look for them, but I don't care because I don't care if you don't want to be here. I tell every kid, I don't care what coach said, you don't have to be here. Don't come.'re not going to hurt my feelings. I'd prefer that you stay away because you're going to save me time from kicking you out anyway. I always feel bad. I hate doing that, but you are not greater than the group, right? Like you have to abide by that.
Yeah. You're going to fall to the standard you hold yourself to, right?
That's it. And I say, if you're not an asset, you're a liability. So get to stepping, you know what I mean? So we gotta keep this thing moving forward.
Yeah, 100%. And God, there's so many things that come up for me with this, and I keep losing my train of thought today. But it's just the attention a lot of these athletes today. I know we talked about it beforehand of like little things like the AirPod in the ear drives me insane. Like,
yes.
The fuck you mean you can't pay attention? I'm gonna have to put the explicit on this. The fuck you mean you can't focus for 60 to 90 minutes without listening to whatever shitty music you've got on there anyway? And when the kids put it in, I make it a point to talk loud and try to coach them as much as possible. So they have to pull it out every 30 seconds and they finally just get annoyed with it because it just irritates me. We're getting ready to ban them at the gym because one, it is a safety issue. Because you're not aware of your surroundings. Teenagers are already pretty aloof. I think I was like probably 25 before I had the wherewithal to like appreciate my surroundings. So I know these teenage guys and girls aren't there. But just the little things like that it's just a lack of standards. It's a lack of execution. It's a lack of focus. Like those things drive me insane. How do you even have to deal with this? Are you able to just outlaw this stuff? What is it like where you are? I need to know.
Yeah. So it's definitely an interesting environment. It's a very affluent area, obviously. Like I said before, it's kind of required, but not really. You know what I mean? So if everyone starts hating it because it's too militant, teams will stop coming in and I'll just be bored out of my mind. Yes, very, very quickly. But yeah, to your point, it's just, I think we have certain standards and it always comes back to safety and creating the best environment for growth for everyone. And then, so we have like TVs on the wall where I'll project the daily workout when we're doing the pre-brief. And well, it's literally everything is listed there. The exercise or your options for the exercises, the sets, the reps, the rest, or this is our 15-minute block, work through as many times as you can, whatever. And immediately, almost immediately, how many sets, how many reps? I don't know, man. What does it say on the board? What did we just talk about? What did I say? Listen to this part specifically. So if I get too many questions like that, again, I think one of the easier, it's a little easier for me because, all right, rack your weights, get in the middle. We don't run suicides. We try to be at least productive with our time. So we're going to do iso split squats. We'll work up to 2 minutes a leg. And then also there's always one person, I'll say left leg forward, 1 minute on the clock, go. There's one or two kids who have the right leg forward. You'll let them finish that set. All right, guys, left leg forward. We got another guy not paying attention. And then the whole team guys start getting it a little bit where you're like, listen, I don't care. I'm not lowering. I don't have I have high standards, but they're not unreasonable. So I'm confident that I'm being fair here. So if you can't reset your rack and your pod for the next team coming in, if we're missing a dumbbell, if we're missing something, if you can't pay attention and be safe, like things like that, like the AirPod thing, like that's definitely, we have no tolerance for that. So we try to keep things strict because otherwise it's chaos. We're a varsity weight room and the general fitness center. So I have a mix of everyone in there. So it truly just turns into chaos if we didn't have those kind of tight standards for everybody. So yeah, but yeah, if I see an AirPod, I think after our conversation, I'm going to just start taking them and throwing them out into the woods right next to the gym.
No, I think that's so important just from the perspective of culture and expectations, right? Because it's every other team you play against, they've got the same plays. Like these games, basketball, football, they've been around for a while. They're going to run a lot of the same shit that you guys are going to run. But the difference is they're either going to execute it better than you or they're not. And that comes with doing the common things uncommonly well. You have an assignment. You need to be there to do that assignment. No different than what we're doing in here, right? There's a method to the madness. And again, it's not like being overly militant, but it's just this is kind of the bar. This is the minimum you need to do, which should be fairly high. So
yeah,
but I don't know. It just seems lost on some of the kids where I told you this week that we had 2 or 3 guys trying to push the sled and they were slipping and their shoes were falling off and they came right from school and they forgot their shorts, so they're pushing in khaki pants. And my blood was boiling this week. I was so just mad. Like I probably only yell at my son the way I was like ready to yell at these guys, but I'm like, you're at a workout. Like it just stopped like over everyone in the gym. I'm like, you're at a workout. Tie your fucking shoes. Like I was super upset and they just kind of all looked at me like, oh, okay. Like I get it now. I'm like, you guys, like you're here. You say you want to get better, but this is what you're giving me. And I can tell you, this is not sufficient. I'm not mad because I care, because ultimately there's a lot of other good teams and kids in the region. We work with them, but I can tell you, you guys being here as a large team are executing things at a level that the rest of the kids that we work with are not, because they're the ones who, again, raise their hand, they want to be there, and they understand what the expectations are. So I have to put a lot of that on myself of maybe not clarifying with that. in retrospect, like this is definitely a me issue. But it's if you don't really cultivate this stuff the right way, that you can grow some weeds, basically.
Yeah, well, it's funny. That's like another big one actually. When a guy comes in and practice schedules change, oh, we were supposed to travel to a game today. I only have this, whatever. That's fine. I can make adjustments. But if you knew you had a workout and you came in and you didn't have your sneakers, you didn't have shorts, go up to the Lost and Found. It's at the far end of the other building across campus. Well, I don't know where that is. We'll go ask somebody who does because you didn't come prepared and I'm not wasting my time on you. And I've thrown out starters before for that. And you're not above anybody. You're just like everything else we talk about. You're setting the standard. So I definitely don't want the guys looking at you. I don't care who says you're a leader where in here, you're not a leader if that's what you're going to do. So stay away or figure it out real quick. So I could totally appreciate you just like the sneaker thing, or you're just like, oh guys, this is not setting us up for success at the end of the day. This is death by 1,000 cuts type deal. So anything to keep the environment locked in, we gotta hit.
Yeah. I was like this close to buying pink booty shorts and a pink shirt for people who forget their clothes. Like hot pink,
Yeah.
and just putting on, I forgot my stuff today, and just having a community stash, maybe 2 in every size. And if you forget your stuff, this is what you're wearing. And oh, by the way, if somebody's already wearing your size, you're either wearing a size bigger or smaller. Don't know what to tell you, but you're not working out in those clothes.
Yeah. That's a great idea, actually.
I know, but all right, man. So early on, you talked about, let's kind of shift gears a little bit. You talked about adults being more rewarding. And
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that. One of the things that we often joke about is athletes are more fun to train in the sense that you get to pull more tools out of the toolbox, right? They can jump high, run fast. But adults just have infinitely better conversations. So,
Yes.
um, but anyway, I think in terms of just coaching the adult, and we can say adult athlete because they're still training
Yeah.
athletically. What's the ways that you're able to continue to keep this stuff simplified and execute? And we can dive back into the shapes because I really love that conversation
Yeah.
because it's sometimes easy / tempting to try to wax eloquent with the adults and
Yeah.
flex nuts on all the education stuff you've been doing. But at the end of the
Yeah.
day, it's like they just want to train and get a little bit better, and I don't know, maybe have an hour to themselves to cut it up.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And yeah, it's in terms of like the rewarding bit of it, it's like it's funny. I forget how many studs I'm around. We have 3 national level recruits on the football team who we have most of the Big Ten and a bunch of SEC coming by to see them on a weekly basis. And they're not even our best team. You know what I mean? So these kids, we talked about there's a whole spectrum, but these kids are studs. It doesn't matter if my program was great or shit. They're getting those scholarships, right? And they're getting to those schools. So I think I'd like to think I'm setting them up for success with whatever I can do with it. But for the adults who their goals are different, but those goals carry a different weight, right? We all know the cliches like getting down to play with my grandkid or like losing the 10 pounds so I can go on walks with my wife again or whatever it is. But I tend to have a lot of athletic adults, like you said, and they just want to feel good and move well in their bodies. But with that in mind, I actually end up using very similar cues and setups for exercises. To your point, the velocities are probably not the same and the forces are not the same, but we're picking from the same or similar movement menus. We're probably using more constraints for them, similar to what we might use to our younger athletes to teach them good positions. And ultimately, we're talking a lot about that tall, tight position. We have a little more wiggle room for different analogies and things like that. But if it's not a cue that can apply to both populations, I don't know how simple or how good of a cue it is. Again, you can individualize based on the person or environment, but it's a lot of the same stuff carrying over for our adults. And ultimately, we just want to see I'm always just thinking about how can we produce the shape we want and different shapes that we want to get you into different positions to allow you to express the movements we're after, right? So I think we could dive more into that, but a lot of the times I'm using like physical constraints with them
Mm-hmm.
to help drive the shape change. I just want you to be a shapeshifter at the end of the day.
Yeah. How how much do you feel like working with the volume of high school athletes has just helped you like cultivate your coaching? Because early on in my career, it's like I just didn't have the reps, but I feel like you're going to be able to just rip through stuff of this doesn't work because 5% of kids get it. Like it's how much do you feel like this has expedited like your coaching?
Yeah, I think of it very similarly to you in terms of when I was younger. I'm not younger, it's even like a couple of years ago. I'm taking every opportunity I can I had other private groups I was working with at 8 o'clock at night after starting at 5:30 in the morning or whatever, like a lot of us do. But I just wanted those reps to trim away the fat, so to speak, from my coaching abilities. And I wanted to get better and quicker and still trying to do that, but definitely the volume that I see at the school, it's you got to be able to transition the program, you got to be able to transition your personality, you got to be able to, because football, we can get after it and get a little gritty and grimy with those guys. But then I have the squash team who they're probably our best team. They are phenomenal, but that is not the same culture. And when water polo or swimming comes in after that, that is also a different culture. So being able to switch hats, switch techniques, we're going to go high ground with football. We're going to go low ground with squash, and just even those those strategies for the teams are going to be things that the more that you're shifting, I think the more it ultimately helps you as a coach to simplify and just develop like a little more of that sharpshooter mentality.
Mhm.
So yeah, the volume and the reps definitely helped.
Yeah, man, you're such a in tune coach, man. Just the way
I
you're
appreciate
able
that.
to, you just so self aware, not of just yourself, but just like the vibe check that every team needs to excel because it's not the same culture. And I think one of the most popular things, at least one of the things that just seems to get perpetuated, is the gritty football culture. Like every large group program that I can think of in our area, they're trying to celebrate who's the grindiest grinders.
Yeah.
And honestly, I
100%.
feel like they're probably just playing one of those motivational tracks in the background. I'm talking about that they do like the Instagram layovers on.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I just told somebody this week, I feel like the David Goggins quotes and Jocko, and I do love all that stuff too, but I feel like it's just like astrology for men sometimes.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
I don't know.
Um,
But anyway, just kudos to you, man, for being able to capture that because I don't think performance is solely about just outworking everyone.
yeah, it's almost like a dimmer switch in my mind of to your point about the David Goggins, and you either have the people that like worship the ground he walks on or are destroying him with, oh yeah, just work harder, blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, who is receiving this message and like where are they at? I get a little esoteric, I feel like, with some of this stuff, but I'm just like, who's in front of me? Who are like, where are they at in their life? What do they need? Do they need a little bit of David Goggins? He's, hate him or love him, he's definitely helped millions of people. But at the same time, if you're already getting up at 3 a.m. And you're a grinder and you're, you know what I mean? Like, and you're that football guy who is just going to keep pushing. Maybe you don't need to work harder. Maybe you need to learn how to work smarter so you recover better and then you can push harder, right? It's just, what do you need to be more successful? What dimmers do we have to play around with to fill the gaps of what you aren't getting? So that's a really interesting analogy you had, but something that I think about a lot actually.
Yeah, like what's a swimmer gonna do? Listen to David Goggins just get in and slap the shit out of the water? Like it just the transfer is not there. It's like I don't know. I mean, I love him too, dude's. I think he's crazy in the best way. But
Yeah, yeah.
man, it's just, we've kind of gone almost like we almost have to vilify the grinder from a marketing standpoint where it's like, okay, like you want to grind, that's fine. Well, why are you practicing being slow? Because all you're doing is getting tired and then you're still training and trying to be fast. Like that isn't fast. Like you're tired,
Yeah.
you're slow. Why are you practicing being slow? And we start to turn this stuff on its head. I think you realize there's just more value in the diversity of training and stimuli and what we're trying to do. But it's definitely like I almost need like a pattern interrupt because it is seductive and it's attractive and it's hard and it's a differentiator. But then it's like, is it really? Like I don't think there's more
Yeah.
ways to
Well,
skin a cat.
yeah, yeah. Well, and it's like that diversity you're talking about is like you're probably really fragile if you only have one strategy. And I know we've heard conversations like this in the past, but if you're the guy who you only know how to work hard, well, what happens when because I have kids who overtrain and get like tendonitis or stress fractures all the time. The area I'm in, very affluent, but also very high achieving. These kids'
Mm-hmm.
parents are unbelievable, and their kids are living in that shadow and trying to create their own life like that. But so if you're just going to keep working hard and keep burying yourself, again, maybe you do need to work smarter. If you're the adult who we talked about being able to shapeshift, if you only know one way to do something, I need to show you there is another way. And we have a lot of finance people in the New York, area around here. We need to diversify your portfolio because one hit to this sector and you are screwed. You know what I mean? So that diversity or diversifying, whether it's your outlook and approach to life or like your physical movement capabilities, I think is huge.
It's so important for adults too, because the term variability, I think, is thrown around in the industry. I'm not sure who really started it, but I'm confident 99% of people don't truly understand it. And to some
Yeah.
degree, probably myself. But the less we do know, the less variable you are, the more you're going to use the same patterns, the same muscles in the same way, and the more injury prone you're going to become over time. So you have to have this ability to have some variability for the subtleties of the movements to vary slightly, for the tissues to tolerate stress in different ways. And it's huge, obviously, for adults from just a pain standpoint. But to your point, it's like athletes, they got to be able to do that at a really high level. And I know a lot of the guys you talked about, 4-star recruits, 5-star recruits, SEC, Big Ten, all these schools coming up to see them. Like, just because they're a high level athlete doesn't necessarily mean they're disqualified from low level or simple training. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm almost like those are the ones who need this more. Like just the really finding really good positions, and we could train it hard, but it's just like to your point, those guys are the specialists a lot of times where they can do the one thing really, really well, so well that it's going to get them a scholarship somewhere. But it's okay. Well, yeah, but there's other facets that are going to, if nothing else, keep your body healthy. So let's do those things to allow you to continue to be that specialist. So for me, that's why it's always coming back to being a generalist. I think that this age in particular that works really well for when like my thing is like for you guys that are going on to these bigger programs, you're going to have a whole staff for you. It's not just me anymore. It's going to be you're going to have that individualization at a lot of the schools you're going to. Let's give your sport coach, let's give your strength coach a guy coming in who could do whatever they need them to. If they're going to have to teach you the basics, you're losing time already in the program while you're competing for a spot. So let's give you a full hand to work with, and then you could play your cards as you see fit. But if you only have one thing that you could play, you better pray to God that that's exactly what they need. Otherwise, you're going to lose your spot to somebody.
Yeah. Some of my favorite coaches, I think about you and like Mike Robertson. And you guys sometimes just execute really simple stuff with guys. And it really helps them get better, right? Because athletes are going to figure out how to do what they need to do.
Yeah.
And so, to your point, it's like you give them these physical constraints that force them to train through movements or patterns or positions that you don't have to over explain. And it's like, they're going to get better. It doesn't have to be in one session or, hey, I did 2 drills and we got that back 60 degrees at IR just now. We're going to evolve this over time.
Well, and it's, again, that's a huge compliment coming from you, but Mike is somebody who I love watching. I watch all his new YouTube videos that he puts out because it's like he's with Bill and you know where he could go with it, but the beauty is in the simplicity. And I personally, it's probably because I can't fully wrap my head around this stuff and still provide a good session. Me and the person get lost trying to provide that. God bless the people that can do that well. But when you could bring it back down and speak plain English and just the session flows really well. It's really clean positions. I don't care if you're PRing, but you're working really hard. The effort is really high. You're moving like just really fluidly. I'm like, so when he does those videos and the breakdown and the explanations, I'm just like, oh, that's it. That's the money right there. I'll leave the online banter and like going down the rabbit hole, and I'll just be on the outskirts trying to pretend I figure it out. But this is where the rubber meets the road type deal.
Yeah. I do some good beef on the internet though. So
listen, when Gianna is watching Real Housewives, I'll always walk by in the background and be like, what is this garbage you're watching? And then 5 minutes later, I'm like, she is such a slut. I cannot believe that she's talking to him. And like, I'm like into it more than she is. So I poo-poo it, but it's because I have no self-control for it.
Yeah, I get it. I always say and I'm waiting for the speed guys in the world to just start beefing a little bit better because they're all they all tiptoe around it, guys, and Darian Barr, like they kind of like make little jabs, but I'm like, you guys need to like follow jiu-jitsu for a little bit. Obviously, it's something I do on the personal side, but those guys go hard in the paint, man. They come at each other. And it's no holds barred. Oh, it's so funny, man. I'm like, if we could get the speed guys to start beefing like that, strength and conditioning, it might be good for the whole industry. It would just blow up because people wouldn't be able to take their eyes off of it.
This is the podcast that's going to light the fuse.
I'm here to just stir shit up and then just kind of like leave it there. You know what I mean? I don't want to be in the mix, but maybe we just kind of kick the dust up a little bit and let people start swinging. All right, man. It's been a really good, and I kind of want to start to wrap this up. So I think something I'm really curious about for you, or just personally, is how has your thought process in terms of coaching and programming evolved over the last, we'll just say since like COVID, the last 2 to 3 years? What's different? What do you feel like has just really allowed you to make massive progress forward as a coach?
Oh man, I feel like kind of the theme for a lot of this conversation in the sense of appreciating the complex, but executing with the simplicity. Because a lot of us, I think that in the background, I'm always thinking about, oh, is this eccentrically oriented? Like we're trying to restore this rotation. And there is all that stuff still going on. I think I like that stuff and I think it's really valuable. But in the past, when I've tried to execute on that, I usually miss the target. Like we move around a little bit, but ultimately I'm like, I'm pretty sure that they have no idea what happened. We didn't hit any of the targets, but I feel like having an appreciation for that and then putting it through the filter of what is going to resonate, how are we going to make the biggest change that we can and still get a training effect. And it's made writing programs easier. It's made getting large groups in and out in a productive manner better. And I think that guys understand what we're trying to do. And if they want those more complex conversations about, hey, how did you just open up my hip like that? Like I've never felt that before. Well, then we could dive into it. But that needs to be an invitation from their side of the street, not my side of the street.
Yeah. Man, I love that. I think that's incredible. I always find if you really want to have those deep conversations, though, you got to have a few tricks up your sleeve. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
Like there's the old school one of rolling your plantar fascia and then doing a toe touch, and it opens up, and people are like, "Well, how the hell did you just do that?" So, you got any tricks like that? What are your go-tos?
Well, it's funny. You just reminded me of one that the kids taught me actually, and I don't know. They must have got this from another coach, but they would do a toe touch and then they would spin around 3 times and then they would do another toe touch and that'll open it up. And you're like, so is it a tight hamstring or is it your nervous system? So that can lead to that whole conversation. The one that is really a funny one is we'll do the side lying, the bag smash, because I got a couple strongman bags in the gym. And so we'll just test the hips before, we'll throw them on the side with the heavy bag, we'll test them after. And they're like, all I did was watch YouTube and lie down for 3 minutes. What do you mean? How did that? So like any of that stuff, the side plank or the suitcase carry for the hip rotation, like those are some easy quick ones if we don't have 3 minutes to do that. That's a really good point though. You do kind of have to flex every once in a while, like as nice as it sounds to be like, this is a two-way street. There's trust both ways. And sometimes you do have to, especially with the high school boys, I'm sure they're always trying to alpha. So sometimes you got to let them know. That's half the reason I still like just try to dunk, because I'm like, I know that I still jump higher than you guys. So that's purely a flex to be like, I got to be the one running the show in here. But it's having those flexes. Yeah, it's good.
Did you ever read the War of Art, the Pressfield book?
No, I do want to read that though.
So there's a quote in there that I don't know why it just resonates with me. It says, a professional does not boast or show off, but it doesn't mean he won't throw down a 360 tomahawk jam just to let the boys know he still means business.
Is that the actual quote?
Something like that. I butchered it, but it's something along those lines where I'm not going to boast, but I'm just going to remind you, like, who's your daddy every once in a while.
Okay.
I'll take a picture of it and send it to you.
Yeah, I'm totally sold on it just for that, because that is I'm going to print that quote out and put it somewhere, because that's 100% true. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like, if you're my son, like, you ever try to fight your dad, like, I'm never going to lose no matter what. So if you get brave at 14, you want to try it, I'll throw everything I have just to remind you one time that you don't want to do this.
I'm coming at you like a spider monkey.
It'll probably be me and my son too. We go toe to toe. And the problem is he's exactly like me, and I can't discipline that out of him. So anyway, Keiran, my man, you've been amazing. Huge inspiration to me. It's an honor for you to just take time and do this. And I so much appreciate you coming on here and sharing your expertise. So thank you very much. And if you could just tell me where we can find out a little bit more about you.
Yeah. So as much as I think it's the devil, on Instagram at WICK, WICK, Strength and Conditioning is the school's weight room page. So I'll share a lot of the teams and what we're up to there. And then my personal athletic adult page is at Halton Performance. And yeah, I think those are the main, I'll be there. But dude, thank you for having me on. You're one of the guys that I always look to for, am I moving in the right direction or not? You've been a great friend since the Silverback days. So I appreciate you reaching out and setting this up, dude.
Yeah, even though I was on the B team.
You were our adopted son.
I was, yeah. All right. Thanks a lot, man. It was great. Catch you soon.
All right. Thanks, man.
If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to rate and review us with 5 stars only. Then subscribe so you can get all the latest updates.